Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What is going on, guys? It is Daniel. We are back here again today. Today we have another Shaheed Bolson video. I know, I read a lot of your comments, and I'm also seeing commentary from other notable Muslims in this space about this specific man, Shaheed Bolson. I mentioned in my first video, this guy has a bit of an odd history, admittedly. But like I said in that video, people change, people make mistakes, and then they can honestly change. As well, just because someone's history doesn't mean we should listen to everything that they say as 100% truth. And that goes for anyone. That goes for people that even have 100% clean history. You know what I mean? Unless they are a literal prophet of God, we really need to question what people say and think about it. Take it with a grain of salt. So, having heard some different opinions about Shaheed Bolson, it honestly makes me more curious to learn about him, because if he is a force for bad, and I don't even want to say that, like, I don't even want to reduce him to that. If he has opinions I disagree with, I'd like to hear them. And I'd like to think about them. So everything I've heard from him so far, mostly I agree with. So that's why I want to check out this video today. This video is, should Muslims ally with the Christian right wing in the West? This is something I've thought about before. This is something I've discussed with my father, actually. My dad, when he was here, he was telling me he thinks that Christians and Muslims should actually unite. But it made me think of the verse in the Quran where Allah actually tells us not to take Christians or Jews as wali. Wali meaning something like a protector, something like that. If there's a better word for that in English, please write down in the comments. That's mostly how I understand wali. So you shouldn't put too much trust in these other people of these different faiths. That makes sense to me, because ultimately, our religions are very similar, but there are differences. And so those differences could be highlighted, especially if we were in a high stakes situation and we were allies for whatever reason. If taking someone as an ally, you need to really trust them. You need to really trust them, because you're basically entrusting them with your life. If there's a high stakes situation, a situation of conflict, it's just like if you're out in public and a fight breaks out, you want to have like your best friends around you, right? Because they really have your back and they're going to try their best to protect you, right? Now, if a fight breaks out and you're kind of with all these people that you just met and you don't really know that well, you're not going to feel as safe, because you don't really know how they're going to act when things really go down. So having said that, I want to hear what Mr. Shaheed Bolson has to say about whether or not Muslims should take right-wing Christians as allies or not. So let's get into it. Before we get into the video, I want to make all of you aware that I have just recently launched my very own weight loss course. This course is the culmination of everything I've learned and that I've taught through my past 3 years of coaching people through weight loss. This course is designed alongside the physiological laws of the human body. There's no calorie counting. There's no fasting required. None of that. It's very easy to follow, and it's a nutritional system that you can follow for the rest of your life that will change your relationship with food and allow you to reach your body composition goals. If you're interested in learning more about it, check the link in the description.
I know that there's a segment of the population in the West, in America, in Europe, in the UK, who feel that their society, that their civilization went astray because they moved away from religion, from Christianity. And there are people who believe that what they need to do is to revive what they call traditional conservative values, Christian values, and so on. And these people are generally regarded and generally regard themselves as right-wing on the political spectrum. And there are Muslims in the West who believe that we can ally with the so-called right wing on the basis of shared traditional values. But I think that this is just as much of a mistake as the Muslims who thought that we should ally with the so-called left and with liberals. Because look, the truth is, there is no right or left wing in the West. There is a very limited spectrum of discourse, the parameters of which are rigidly enforced to exclude anything of substance. Pundits and commentators on either side of this narrow spectrum are tasked with making the discourse appear broader than it is, while simultaneously fixing the parameters of discussion by articulating the official positions of each acceptable political extreme.
Man, this guy's sentences are so deep and articulate. I'm trying to wonder. I'm wondering, is he reading this, or can he really remember all of this? If he can remember all of this, it's very impressive. Reading this, if it's his own writing, is also impressive. Because, like I said, it's very articulate. But I would be amazed if he's not reading any of this. It seems like he's not. Like, looking at his eyes and the way he's speaking, it seems like he's not reading. But man, is he in depth, huh?
That's what they do. You know, people like to talk these days about gatekeepers. That's a very popular term these days. But the real job of gatekeepers isn't to decide who gets to be let in. It is to ensure that no one can get out. So there's no real difference between, say, a Rachel Maddow and a Dennis Prager, between an Anderson Cooper and a Bill O'Reilly, not in terms of their function, because their function is to make it appear that there is broad diversity of opinion, broad discourse, but that broad discourse is actually just a mural of a vast horizon that's been painted on the wall of a prison cell. So look at just one area in the West, in Western society. Just look at relationships between men and women. So on the so-called left, you have, the woke side of the spectrum. You've got third or fourth wave feminism. You have the LGBTQ. You have all this confusion about what a woman is. You've got the constant drumbeat proclaiming that everything is toxic masculinity and misogyny. And you've got this whole complicated new set of protocols around consent, where even customary attempts at flirtation and seduction can be construed as grooming, on and on. I mean, I would say that I don't know how you could possibly make it more complicated for men and women to enter into a relationship than what the left has done. But then there's the people on the right, the so-called right. There you have these red pillars, black pillars, MGTOW, and all this alpha male masculinity, machismo, teaching men that women are hypergamous gold diggers, marriage is a scam, women are inferior, and no one should ever invest emotionally in a woman, and so on and on and on. They're indoctrinating young men into a mindset that guarantees that they will never be attractive to a woman or ever be involved in a serious relationship with a woman. Both sides seem determined to ensure that men and women do not get together and do not procreate. Both sides seem to want you to go extinct. No, there's no right wing or left wing in the West. The right wing...
So far, I think he's oversimplifying people's views in the West. These are two viewpoints that are common in the West. Like he's talking about the left wing wokeism and then the right wing sort of red pill, MGTOW. But that's not all that exists, especially in the right wing. There are plenty of people in the West that are Christian, that hold traditional Christian values, that support the family unit, the nuclear family, support having a strong father figure and mother figure, and having children. That's more common than he's seeming to make out here. I'm not sure if he's going to mention this or if he's going to stick with this oversimplified view that he's presenting. Let's see.
Are the people who tell you constantly on the biggest public platforms in the media that they're saying what they're not allowed to say. They're getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars, and generating millions and millions of views saying the supposedly unsayable. But of course, this is all within the designated discourse. As far as the so-called right wing goes, the so-called Christian right or traditionalist right wing, well, it's incoherent. Well, it has to be incoherent because Christianity has no jurisprudence. It doesn't have that kind of system. You know, one kind of Christian will say that Christians shouldn't drink alcohol, while another kind of Christian, Catholics say, literally serve wine during their religious services, or
Yeah.
used to. So which is it? You know?
This is ultimately my point as well. When I hear people saying that Muslims and Christians should unite, I'm hesitant because one of the reasons I'm so hesitant is because of what he's discussing here, how Christians can't agree within themselves what's good and what's bad. And so if you are allied with somebody that they can't figure out what is good and what's bad, you can't trust them. You really can't trust them, especially if stakes are high and the pressure is on. You have no idea what they're going to do. You really don't. You might think you know, but you really don't because they don't have any objective, like he's saying, they don't have that system. They don't have that system. It's not written in stone as much like we have in Islam.
Some Christians think that homosexuality is a sin. Others say God is love and everything is fine, no matter what you do. So there's no solution in so-called Christian traditionalism.
And Jesus died for your sins.
You can't backtrack on the path that you're on to make things better. Like I've said before, you're on the wrong path in the first place. So going backwards isn't going to help. I mean, look, there's a reason why your society's abandoned Christianity to begin with. Because the church didn't actually civilize you. Because how could it? I mean, you abandoned Judaic law, which at least was a law, and you replaced it with ambiguity and moral capriciousness, where you either have to have the church fathers decide for you what's right and what's wrong arbitrarily, or else you just have to let your own heart decide, as if your uncivilized heart is even a trustworthy guard against selfishness and desires. You rejected theocracy for secularism because your theocracy was already immoral anyway, and it granted divine status to tyrannical men who pretended to represent God on earth.
This is actually a pretty good point. I want to play devil's advocate here and give him opposing argument, saying, just he's basically saying that people left Christianity because Christianity is inherently flawed in that there's no strong foundational system. And like you said, it's ambiguous in terms of the law, what people should actually be doing in their day-to-day lives. And I forgot what I was going to say. Like, I was going to say, well, just because the system is perfect doesn't mean that's why people leave it. Like, for example, people leave Islam, for example. So that is a reason, but there's also other reasons, I guess. So I guess I don't necessarily disagree with him. I just like to add on to his point and say that even if we do have a strong system, people will still leave it sometimes because they have pride in their heart, or that they don't truly submit to their creator and to their way of life. And the rules that their creator has given them, they don't truly submit. Honestly, sincerely, in their heart, they don't truly submit, and that can cause them to leave their religion. But I agree with what he's saying, that Christianity ultimately is ambiguous, because if Jesus died for your sins, then what's the point of struggling so hard not to sin, because Jesus already died for my sins. So, I'll just kind of do what I feel like is good to do. But even so, Christianity is such a paradox to me, like, because you have that view, but then also in the Bible it says, Jesus says in Matthew that he came to actually fulfill the law and not destroy the law. So it's like, which one is it? Did Jesus die for his sins and now you're all good to go, and if you believe in Jesus, you 100% go to heaven? Or is it that you need to follow the Judaic law? I don't understand.
So really, your secularism was just a cosmetic change because you're still doing the same thing. Men were deciding what was moral and what was right and what was wrong before under the church, and they continued doing that after secularism, claiming essentially the same level of absolute moral authority. The only difference, really, between secularism and theocracy, according to the West, the way the West practiced it, the separation of church and state, the only difference is that it allowed the exile of morality from the realm of business. So the point is, there's no solution in going back to the thing that already was not convincing or compelling enough for you to have kept hold of it to begin with.
I don't know what he's talking about going back to. I don't know who he's talking about going back. Muslims going... Oh, is he talking about... okay, he started with people think that we have left traditional Christianity and we need to go back to it. And he's saying there's no point in going back because it's a flawed system inherently already.
You let go of it for a reason. It didn't provide sustainable, codified, practical guidance for you. It didn't do it then, and it's not doing it now, and it can't do it now. That's why you moved away from it in the first place. And who are the big heroes of this traditionalist movement? You've got like Jordan Peterson, who was supposed to be sort of the messiah of masculinity for young men, Mr. Return to Traditional Christian Values. This is a man who can't even answer the question directly whether or not he believes in God.
What does it mean to believe?
Cashing in on his notoriety as soon as
when you ask that question, it begs the question, what does what mean? What does the word what mean?
he possibly could. Caring
That's
about
my best Jordan Peterson impression. Not very good.
depressed and lonely young men all the way to the bank. He's become now a parody of himself. And he did that for money. Sold his soul to the Daily Wire. Now he's just a standard issue right-wing talking head. Just run through an AI program to make all of his talking points have more syllables, to make the normal talking points sound more academic. And your other one is Ben Shapiro. That's the other one they've got. And maybe Dennis Prager. Both of them are Jewish. I mean, just ask Ben Shapiro if he's willing to pray in a Christian church, if it's even allowed for him to do that. But of course, you'll need the Jews to help you with articulating some kind of traditionalist morality, because they at least have some kind of law. They have some kind of system. It just happens to be the law and the system that Christianity jettisoned right from the get-go. That's what even made it Christianity. So that's a bit awkward. But look, it's not only Jews. You can see Christians now, wanting to revive Christianity as if that's the solution to the moral decadence of the West, the deviants. But look at what they're doing. Now you can see Christians basically trying to Islamize Christianity. I mean, you've got preachers going viral online, going viral on social media, talking about, I'm not going to let no Muslim out-pray me, right? So you have Christians now prostrating in prayer, making sajda like Muslims. It's become desirable in the West now for men to grow their beards, and you'll be made fun of if you don't have a beard. Well, that's a Muslim thing. You have people like Candace Owens talking about dressing modestly, Never mind the fact that she's got herself made up to look like one of the Kardashians these days. Mm-hmm. Talking about women covering
Shots
up.
fired.
They're basically
Shots
saying
fired.
that in order to be a good Christian, you ought to act more like a Muslim. But they want to tell themselves that this is all from their deen. But they're trying to copy us. And see, this is the core problem.
It's like they want to copy everything except the Aqidah. They say, oh, they're scared to say that they believe that there's one true God, Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of the one true God. But they want to take everything else. They agree with everything else except that part. They say, no, I don't want to let go of my Jesus.
This is the core of the problem. Westerners, like everyone else, have a fitrah. They have an innate nature. And the truth of the matter is that innate nature conforms with Islam. But their society has told them, has propagandized them, has made them believe that their civilization, that their culture, that their society embodies that nature, that innate nature. But it doesn't. This is the root of the cognitive dissonance. Internally, you believe in fundamental values. And your society tells you that Western values, Western culture, Western civilization represents the pinnacle of those values, when it is actually a civilization that contradicts and opposes those values down to the most minute detail. That's why so many of you feel sick. That's why so many of you feel confused. That's why you feel hopeless. That's why you feel depressed, because
Yeah.
you are living in a hell that you're constantly being told is a paradise. So
Hmm.
not only does that make you feel sick, but they feed you more of what is making you sick while telling you that it's a cure. You know, we need to revive traditional Western values. That's the problem. No. Traditional Western values is what got you where you are now. That's what made you sick. That's what's causing your problem. I've said it before, but it bears repeating ad infinitum. Your civilization has betrayed you, and it is betraying you. It's not what it seems. Western civilization is not as advertised.
He does have a pretty good point here. And I want to argue against him and say, like, no, they're traditional Christianity, like these traditional Christian families, they have a pretty good system. They have families and stuff like that. But he's begging the question, like, what is that actually based on? And I don't have an answer for that. I don't think there is an answer for that. I don't think they know. Like you said, maybe it's some sort of early church father. That's ambiguous. So yeah, they really don't have any kind of strong foundational system, do they? Even the ones that it's basically the best ones are those, like he's saying, the ones that are basically copying Islam. Like those are the best ones. And whether they're doing that from the example of Islam, or they're doing it from the example of um, like I said, an early church father. Yeah, they don't really know. They don't really know why they're doing what they're doing. It doesn't come from anything objective. So he does have a pretty good argument here.
You actually believe, maybe, what your civilization claims to believe in, but doesn't. You have to come to terms with the fact that it doesn't actually believe in those values, and it never did. And these people, these so-called right-wingers, these so-called traditionalists and whatnot, they are more opposed to Islam than anyone else. Now, for liberals, they think that morality is itself a sickness. So they're not trying to sell you morality as a cure. But the so-called conservatives, they want to take that old arsenic off the shelf and sell it to you as medicine. With the
I want to provide him an example of a popular right wing role model in the West that does get along with Islam and has said positive things about it. But I honestly can't think of one. Honestly, can't think of one. Which is sad, really. I immediately what came to mind is UFC fighters like Sean Strickland, the new middleweight champion, who he's kind of like a, I don't know, for people my age or people in America similar to me, like young athletic males, young strong men that have at least some moral integrity. He is kind of a role model, major role model right now for those men. He's talking about, these kind of things, keeping women at home, having a one income family so that the mother can actually raise the children and not send them to daycare. He's talking about being a strong man, not being a weak man, and how important that is. He's not tying it into Christianity, really, I think. I've never heard him talk about Christianity. But he is openly stated that Islam is bad. So, and I can't think of any other example, like I said, of any Western right wing role model that has, reached out and made a friendly handshake with Islam. Can't think of one. He's right.
label traditional Western values on it. So Islam and Muslims pose a threat to their marketing. It poses a threat to their market.
Yeah.
You can't have someone providing free medicine to people when you're trying to sell them snake oil. And
There
that's
you
what
go.
they're doing. That's what these
Wow.
so-called conservatives are doing. They're selling snake oil, packaged in patriotism, packaged in nostalgia, packaged in the Bible, packaged in your rich Western civilizational heritage or what have you. But they're just peddling more sickness. The liberals think that sickness and health are the same thing, so they're not selling fake cures. But the right-wingers are pretending to sell cures. But again, there is no actual right or left in the West. They're both just trying to keep you sick.
Mm.
And Muslims shouldn't partner with any of them as far as I'm concerned. Because when we partner with them, whether it's the right or the left, that just lends fake credibility to them, and it discredits us when we do that. Islam is the cure for what ails you in the West, because of course it is. That's why these merchants of sickness teach you to hate Islam as much as they do, because they're in the fake vaccine business. Whether it's a biological virus or a moral virus, they're selling placebos, and they don't want you to ever even accidentally stumble upon a natural cure. And that's what Islam is. It's a natural cure. And a natural cure is bad for business.
He's going off right now.
Islam is locked out of the discourse, the mainstream discourse, by both.
Shaheed is going off right now, man. I'm getting goosebumps here. He's nailing it.
The so-called right and the so-called left. The only time that they'll bring Islam into the discussion is exclusively to misrepresent it, to distort it, to make it look bad, to make Islam look like it's a virus itself.
That's true.
They want to make you think that Islam is the same old corrupt theocratic system that you used to have. Well, it isn't. They won't talk about Islam except to lie about it. And anytime a Muslim tries to get into the discussion or gets invited to be in the discussion, then that Muslim will almost inevitably dilute the cure that Islam is. They'll mix it with the sickness that you already have to make it taste more familiar to you. Because they think that if they can just get a few drops of medicine to you, it might help. But in my opinion, it won't help.
I mentioned this. I like this about him. I mentioned this in the first video we watched of him. How he doesn't do that. He doesn't try to apologetically try to explain Islam. He doesn't lie about it. He's 100% honest about it. And like I said, he's unapologetic about it. This is the way it is. And it's like that for a reason. And here's the reasons. And this is why it makes sense. Whereas you see, like he said, some Muslims in the West, like he said, they dilute it. They say, oh, well, it's not really like that. There's some differing opinions or like different interpretations and stuff like that. It's like, no, it's not really like that. It's pretty cut and dry, on some of these issues.
In my opinion, it doesn't help, because you're more likely to just take those few drops of medicine along with the arsenic that you're getting from the right wingers, and you'll actually start to think that the arsenic might be working. Or else you'll take the sickness that the left is giving to you, and you'll actually start to think that maybe that sickness is health. So no, in my opinion, the right and the left in the West are just two sides of the same coin. And I don't think that either side of the Western coin is closer to us or closer to Islam than the other. And at the end of the day, it's a counterfeit coin. And you can't use a counterfeit coin to buy anything except for trouble. So you're just asking for trouble when you try to align yourself with either side of that coin.
There you go. MashaAllah. Yeah, I think he's pretty on point there. Like I said, I know whatever. There's things he says people don't agree with, or some people think he's, working for some government or something. I don't know. Provide evidences, please. Because I'm open-minded. I'm totally open-minded. Like if someone doing some sketchy stuff and I can verify it, I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna try and hide it myself. You know what I mean? I'm open-minded. I'm willing to question anything. So if you think that this guy shouldn't be trusted, please provide evidences in the comments below. But so far, watched 2 videos of him, and he makes good points, man. He makes really good points. I really want to share this video with my dad. I'm going to send my dad a link to this video. I think my dad needs to watch this. We talked about this before, about Muslims and right-wing Christians, right-wing Americans uniting. And he was in big support of this, and I told him I'm hesitant of that. And in this video, Shaheed was able to distill very eloquently all the reasons I could think of that that's maybe not a good idea. So mashallah, alhamdulillah, good video today. Hope you all enjoyed that video, and inshallah we will see you all in the next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.